Hello everyone! A few months ago I made this video about games that are similar in any way to old school Zelda titles for those who miss the classic top-down Zelda feelings. And now, 6 months later, I'm back with 6 more games to recommend if you're a fan of this style. I will follow a similar structure from the last video, starting with games that are closer to Zelda in gameplay and design, and then going on to games that stray a little bit in their formula. And the first one is Alundra, released originally for PlayStation 1 in 1997. A real classic, sometimes called Zelda for PlayStation. Alundra features its own silent protagonist with pointy ears, strangely similar to Link, on his journey following strange dreams he's been having. After surviving a shipwreck, classic setting for 19s RPGs, he arrives on the village of Inoa, where he discovers that he's a dreamwalker, someone capable of entering other people's dreams. Although it features a gameplay heavily inspired by Zelda with puzzles, platforming, and even things equivalent to heart pieces, Alundra takes a much more RPG approach, relying a lot more on its storytelling. It was praised a lot back then when it was released, and even today it's still a timeless classic that every old school Zelda fan should give a chance. Be wary though, this game can have some rather challenging puzzles. It also has a sequel, Alundra 2, released in 1999, but this one was a 3D action JRPG and had almost nothing to do with the first Alundra. And as far as I remember, Alundra 2 wasn't really a good game, but it has been more than 20 years, so I don't know if I can trust my memory that much. Maybe one day I'll give it another chance. Anyway, if you love Zelda, especially A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, you should totally play the first Alundra. Anodyne, released for basically every modern platform, mobile, PC and every console, originally in 2013. This one draws its inspiration mostly from A Link's Awakening. Anodyne is a retro-style pixel art indie game developed mainly by just two people, Melos Hantani and Marina Kitaka. This game brings a much darker atmosphere to the genre, also relying a lot on the Dreams theme. Pretty much like Alundra in Link's Awakening itself, but with a much more obscure and even horror-like feel sometimes. Gameplay-wise, it also plays a lot like the classic Zelda formula. You find yourself a weapon, in this game it's a broom instead of a sword, and explore an extensive map solving puzzles, finding hidden items, unlocking new abilities and gaining access to new areas. It's a rather short game, around 5 or 6 hours, and it's really cheap. It also goes on sale quite often, so it's really accessible. Plot-wise, it's very introspective and even unclear at times, with some cryptic dialogues and messages for you to decipher and discover the story by yourself. To sum it all up, if you want to try a darker take on the Zelda formula, this game can be a great experience. Guardian of Paradise, released exclusively for PC in 2005. This one's kind of weird, not because of the game itself, but because it's a free indie game developed by a single guy, E. Hashimoto, also known as Buster. Yes, it's a free game and it also has a free translation patch. You can just Google it, download it and start playing. I thought that being a free game would mean that it would also be kind of low budget and maybe disappointing, but it turns out that I was wrong. It's a quite simple game and also kinda short. I think it took me around 4 hours to beat it, but the gameplay is really fun and the elemental system it presents is also really well done. Visually, it looks a lot like a Game Boy Advance game. Towns will remind you a lot of Minish Cap, while character sprites resemble those from Pokémon. Gameplay and structure are also heavily inspired by top-down view Zelda, but instead of featuring an extensive open world to explore, Guardian of Paradise is divided in stages. Every time you beat a boss at the end of the dungeon, you're transported to the next level with a new map to explore, new dungeons, new skills to learn and collectibles to find. As I said, it's a very simplified use of the Zelda formula, but also a fun take nonetheless. It's also free and short, so there's absolutely no reason for you not to try it. My only criticism about this game is how your character bounces a lot every time you get hit, and sometimes this throws you off ledges or even out of the room, making every enemy respawn. Not really a big issue, but it can get a little annoying sometimes. Final Fantasy Adventure, or its remake, Adventures of Mana. Original version released for Game Boy in 1991 and the remake released for mobile and PS Vita in 2006. Will I ever get tired of talking about the Mana series in this channel? Probably not. Yes, this is the first ever title in the Mana franchise, and although it was branded as Final Fantasy Adventure in the West back then, it played a lot more like an 8 to 16-bit Zelda than Final Fantasy. It can feel a little rough around the edges, a little clunkier than Zelda, but it's still a pretty solid experience. While the combat and exploration are heavily inspired by Zelda, it doesn't deny its RPG side, counting with experience points to level up and gaining attribute points to distribute when you do. New equipments every town and different weapons to choose from. If the original Game Boy version proves itself a little too old school for you, the remake does a great job at modernizing it and making it more tolerable and fun, without losing its essence, and also delivering a well-deserved revamp on its awesome soundtrack full of real bangers. The only downside here is that this remake is stuck on mobile and on Sony's dead portable system, the PS Vita. It's also noteworthy that this game follows a more JRPG-like structure, instead of an open world to explore and find collectibles and upgrades. It's not everyone's favorite on the Mana series, but I still find the remake to be quite enjoyable. There's also another remake, Sword of Mana, but I won't include it here since it's more like a reimagination than a remake, and it plays a lot more like other Mana titles instead of the original Final Fantasy Adventure, ditching almost completely its Zelda influence. Evoland, released originally for PC in 2013, but since then ported to basically every modern platform. Another indie title, this one just partially Zelda-like, and the reason for that is that this game actually pays homage to many classic old school games. The very concept of Evoland is to start as a single pixel and then unlock new mechanics that are actually technologies that made games evolve throughout the years, from pixels to forms to colors, 16 bits, 3D and so on. As such, the game is loaded with references to classics, but two of them stand out very clearly, and they are Zelda and Final Fantasy VII. The experience itself is really fun, so I won't give you many details to avoid spoilers. It's also one of those indie games that goes on sale pretty frequently, and there's even a sequel and a bundle including both games. I haven't played the sequel yet, but I have really high expectations for it since it probably perfects the first Evoland flaws. Not that there are many, if we don't think about the terrible final boss fight. Guardian Tales, released for mobile and Nintendo Switch. This one was recommended by Sun Plays Minecraft on my other video about Zelda-like games, and I decided to give it a try. I'll start by warning you all that this game is a gacha, therefore usual systems for this kind of game are present here, including an energy system and all of that. I'm saying this cause I know this is an instant turn down for many people, but I'm also here to tell you that it's worth a chance. Gameplay is really fluid with a fun story, and you can play a lot without having to pay anything and using only free pulls from the gacha. Being a mobile game, it features mini stages instead of an open world, but each stage has its own set of puzzles and enemies, akin to what you usually see in isolated areas from Zelda games. This works really well considering it's a game thought not only for playing at home, but also on the go with your phone. It's free, so you don't really lose anything by giving it a chance, and also apparently it has some really cool collabs. Back when I started playing, there was a free Eden collab going on. If you're an anime fan, I'm sure that caught your attention. So, that's it for today's list. There are still more and more games like this, and I've yet to play a lot of them so I can decide whether to recommend it or not. One of those, for example, is Crosscode, also mentioned in the comments in my other videos. I'm pretty sure it's amazing, but it's still in my backlog. Anyway, have you all played all of these games? Remember to tell me in the comments, and if you think of any other games like this, please recommend them too so I can check them out and maybe list even more Zelda-like games in the future. I'd also like to thank everyone who's been liking, commenting and sharing my videos, with a special mention to my supporters Kaito Majima, who left me a super thanks on my video about Yakuza, and also Victoria Aze, White Blast, Mayara4597, who's been supporting me ever since the beginning of my channel. Thank you all a lot. And if you want to support me too, you can do so by checking my Ko-fi page on the description or by liking, subscribing, commenting and hyping this video. That said, don't forget to like and subscribe and see you next time.